All right, well, welcome back, guys. This is the Gutter Installer Podcast. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We have a very interesting guest today. This guy has really piqued my curiosity, and that's why he's here. Seth Forrestier. It is a French name. He and I just touched on that. It's a unique name, but he's a unique guy. There's a lot to this guy. He's certainly an interesting cat. I want to touch on a few things, and then I want Seth to confirm I was right, and then maybe give us a little more meat on these topics. But he's originally from Lafayette, Louisiana. He is in Texas now running his gutter business. The name of his business is The Gutter Guy. But there's a lot more to Seth, and that's why he's here. It's not just about rain gutters. Look, let's face it, everybody, we're pretty bored with rain gutters, right? I mean, it's all we live and breathe and eat. This guy, Seth, is an entrepreneur. That's why he's here. First of all, Seth, hi. Hello.
How's it going, Frank?
Thanks for joining us. I just want to touch on a few topics that really piqued my interest, and then I want to turn the mic to you. Entrepreneur, multiple businesses, 3 at a time. I see a safe in the background. You and I talked offline, and you were into firearm sales, which is super interesting. I'm in a blue state in Connecticut. I have guns. I'm licensed to conceal carry, but in Connecticut and New York, certainly, and I'm right on the border of New York, it is a whole nother world when it comes to weapons. You can't get your hands on guns without, talking to the FBI and jumping through hoops. I mean, I know that's a national thing, but
yes, it is.
I travel, and Texas is a whole nother planet. So I want to talk about firearms and guns and that sort of thing. And most importantly, though, I want to start with your origin story, because we talked and you have a very, very interesting origin story. I'd love to just let you wrap and tell us where you came from, how you got into home improvement, and how you got into entrepreneurship, and we'll just kind of work our way to the current.
Well, sure. So I grew up in South Louisiana in Lafayette, and my dad was a commercial sheetrock hanger, and he was kind of getting tired of it. We weren't making a lot of money. We were pretty broke, that kind of poor blue collar where filling the whole propane tank is not an option, And we were at a church event in the fall in 95.
Okay.
And an old friend of my mom's came up to us, and he had started a gutter company in Austin. And he said, if we move up there, we get a company truck, and I don't remember if it was salary or not, but it was good pay. We just had to uproot, and
no experience, just good with a tape measure at that point, right? Dad.
Yeah, and the guy who owned that company, I don't recall, but I don't think he had more than a couple of years experience.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, he had been hanging sheetrock and framing before that too. But mid 90s, that was when machines kind of became available for everybody. So, right. So we uprooted and moved out there. And for the first half a year to year, my dad was driving back and forth between Austin and Dallas doing apartment complexes.
Wow. For those that aren't in the South, what's the drive time on that?
About 2 to 3 hours, depending on how traffic goes.
Okay.
But he was driving back and forth, and one windy day he was working, and the ladders got blown off the apartment complex. Oh. And he was stuck up on the roof for a while. They had to get someone to come bring those, stand those 40-foot extensions back up.
Been there.
He gets down and just kind of says, I don't want to do apartments anymore. And so the guy put him on residential around Austin, but there was no helper for him. And I'm 7 years old at the time.
Wow.
And, I was at the time, I was the oldest of 4 at the time. I have 5 siblings now, but I was, there was no help to be had, so I was the helper.
7 years old, a helper.
At 7.
Good Lord.
And I didn't exactly quit school. We were homeschooled, but I skipped every other grade and did school in the evenings,
Sure, yeah.
And so from 7 years old, I was working full time.
All right, let me stop you right there. Let me ask a question, and those that know me know I'm blunt, and I wouldn't say crude, but I get right to it, and I'm blunt. I know on my job sites, sometimes I'll have, I do some roofing too, and I have subcontractors. I've had times where school's out, teenage son is not at school. He shows up on the job site. Maybe he's 15, 16. But even at 15, 16, these kids are skinny and slight, and they look their age. They look young.
Yep.
And on a residential job, right, the homeowner's looking out the window or walking around. You see a kid, and you're like, "What the hell's going on?" At 7? I mean, my oldest is 11. I have a son that's 4. I'm trying to think of my child that's closest to 7. My son's not far away from 7. He's almost 5.
You try to imagine him on your own job site.
Yeah, dude. What are homeowners saying when you're running around on job sites at 7?
So it was where we were. I don't recall there ever being a single complaint. Now, I didn't go work apartment complexes, obviously.
Right.
But Dad was just residential. So more often than not, the homeowners were thrilled
Really?
to have kids working. And I bring my kids out on my job sites too. And I've never once gotten a complaint.
I'm okay with it. It's that satisfying the homeowner nonsense. Oh, liability, and
I know. I guess it depends on your customer base and what part of the country you're in. I'm sure that makes a big difference.
Sure.
But for us in Austin at the time, I don't recall there being. I mean, you'd have to ask my dad. Maybe about when I wasn't there, he got a jab here or there, but I don't recall any. Now, obviously,
at 7, you're not necessarily physically inclined, right? So,
well, that's what I was going to say here. So, I had about a 15-year-old uncle at the time, and every once in a while, when there was a job where I wasn't physically capable, obviously someone else would come in and do something. But
amazing.
But by the time I was 10. Definitely by the time I was 10, I remember the job when I started it. I just grabbed the hacksaw. This is long before we had chop saws on the back of gutter machines, but I just grabbed the hacksaw and started running the machine. One day, Dad was hanging a piece on the other side of the house, and I was like, nope, I know how to do this now. And from that day on, I was the runner.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and so trial by fire, right? Like you just thrown in there, you figure it out quick. How long did it take for you to like master gutter? Like by what age were you like a savage?
So at 16, I was running a crew for another company.
Wow. And how many guys did you have under you?
That was a 3-man crew. And we were doing storm chasing.
Okay. Yeah, sure. How far did you travel for that?
All the way from South Texas to Central Oklahoma.
Wow. So you had your chops at a young age. I mean, this is definitely an outlier type of story. Or tell me different. Do you run into anybody else that has
the guy who trained my dad? His son and I are the same age, and we worked together for years and years.
So interesting.
My lead installer right now, he's my age and he's got 18 years. So he started decently young. I know lots of guys around here that started when they were 16, 17. It's easy to get a construction job done.
Here's what's funny. I'm 47. You said 95, right? When you were 7, I was 95. I was on a rugby pitch in college, smashing people's faces and bleeding all over the place. So I know the age gap there, but at 47, I have 22 years under my belt. I'm at least 10 years older than you. And how many? You probably have comparable amount. Maybe
I've got 20. I have 28.
I mean, that's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And I claim those first years at 7 too, and
Yeah.
here and there's some people who challenge me. But, every once in a while, there's some people who challenge me, like, you were just holding gutter up. But
no, you're like the kid that got the black belt, the junior black belt. Like, you know what I mean? You got your stripes before you were 10, and then
absolutely.
And this is crazy.
I wish that all my guys had, those pre-12-year-old years just to learn how to hold gutter. It seems like such a simple thing, but you get on a job site and your machine starts running away from the house or whatever, and you're like, oh no, I got to go reset my machine.
Right.
More often than not, that's just because people don't know how to set run out stands and they're twisting the gutter.
Correct.
But
are you still hanging? Do you hang, or are you just running the companies?
Oh, I still install. That's why I couldn't talk to you last week, because I do not want to give up my tape measure.
So I have a wrap around my knee right now. I have 2 ice packs in that wrap. I just had my knee replaced 6 weeks ago. I'm in terrible pain today, yesterday. There's ebbs and flows. 28 years and you're still hanging. How's your body?
It's old. I started seeing a chiropractor when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
My homeschooled holistic family, so I got to see a chiropractor early. And remember the first time I went in, this chiropractor, he looks at me, he's like, you have really old bones. Like, I feel it, doc. I feel it.
Yeah. Look, this is a lesson to the young guys, right? You can't do this forever. You can't. You have to figure out a way to scale out, right?
I was really fortunate to have a dad who didn't like to wear lots and lots of tools. So, because he had spent years hanging sheetrock, messing his body up.
Well, it screws your hips up. I ruined my hips with the pouches in the old days before the shoulder straps became popular, the suspenders.
Well, and I was taught, the way I was taught to hang and the way that I teach my guys to hang. Now, some of my crew like their big pouches, but I don't carry anything on me. I have clips on my tools. I have a simple little screw pouch with a clip on it. Mm-hmm. I try to keep my extra weight daily way down and wear good shoes.
But you know what? It's easier said than done. I know from my old day, it's been a while, right, since I was hanging every day, but it was always like, forgot the needle nose. Like some one-off tool that you need to twist a strap or something that is just in the way and you can't work, or you got to pull a nail that's in the way. And you feel like you have to have even like a small nail puller or, X amount of tools. Maybe it was like 8 hand tools that I absolutely had to have on me. But yeah, they weigh you down.
They do, and there's ways around it. It's funny when I'm hanging with my lead right now. He's got his big pouch with every conceivable tool.
One of those.
He's got a bum ankle, so he can't handle all day of walking.
Right.
But I have good ankles, so I build everything on the ground. I don't drill holes in the air. I tab on the ground. Outlets on the. I do everything on the ground.
Fair enough.
It's just
you have to be. Look, that's the way I tried to be. Sometimes you make mistakes, especially outlets. They're beguiling. Sometimes they get away from you. But man, you have to be dialed in and really, not daydreaming, right? You have to really be dialed in on that tape measure.
Absolutely.
Good on you. That's a good way to install, but that takes a real thinker.
I really attribute it to, when you're prepubescent and working, you're soaking up so much knowledge and you're paying attention to everything. Think about it, that's when kids learn how to read, they learn how to ride a bicycle. While other kids are doing that, I'm learning how to hang gutter. So at the level that people know how to talk or write or ride a bike, I know gutter.
This is what makes you so unique. So gutters was the first thing you knew, essentially, from a monetary perspective.
Yes, that was the first skill set that I was ever taught. And it quickly evolved from there because.
Was that crew at 16 for Dad? Were you guys working together?
No, that was actually for the guy who trained him, and that's a little bit later in the story. But that's how I got my start independently. Dad had moved on to other things, and we had an old, like a 94 95 or 94 watertight machine.
Sure.
That was sitting in the back of the yard on a trailer. And he was doing commercial construction at the time. And I still wanted to make money. And so I asked him if I could borrow that.
Yeah, let me borrow this trailer real quick.
And so I took that machine, hooked it to my truck, and got a job working for this other guy running a crew. And I used that machine for years. I mean, and it's actually to this day still in working condition. Those old big wheel machines are great.
All right, so look, this is where we can get the conversation could get really interesting. You got your chops on the install side, right?
Yeah.
When did you learn how to run the business, the sales, the marketing, the organizational stuff? Did you do that on your own? Because a lot of us wind up learning on our own. There are no, until recently, there were no real support systems out there, right? You kind of have to hack it and figure it out and come up, like go to the Secretary of State and get that good name, the gutter guy, and grab an LLC, and you kind of just flying by the seat of your pants. Was that you? Did you do that like I did?
So I got to give credit where credit is due here. My dad, he'll probably watch this, so I don't want to smack talk him or anything. He did not give me money. I never had daddy's money. But I watched my dad do everything from scratch. Because after we left Austin and moved to South Texas, he had bought that watertight machine and started his own business. And he had no experience on the business side. And I watched him go through all of that. And there were some things that, everybody watches their parents and say, I'm going to not do that, or I'm going to do that. And I was definitely taking notes.
Okay.
My dad was real big on not taking loans out. So,
All right.
It was just one of those things. I think that was buying that machine and trailer was probably the first time I'd ever seen him take a loan out for something. But whenever I started my company, I'll tell that little tangent because I was working for this other company as a crew lead, and the owner of that company called me up one day and said, "Hey, there's this little tiny leak that I need you to go take care of on the south side of Longview. This is a bad side of town. There's no money down there." Mm-hmm. And he said, "It's just a little leak." He's like, "Don't run it through my company. Just go take care of it." Well, I get down there, and this sweet old black lady comes out. Her name was Mrs. Hooper. And I point out where the leak is and say what I'm going to do to fix it. And she goes, "No, I just want you to replace everything."
Wow.
And
that's a big pivot, right?
Yeah, and I had the approval to do the job on my own already. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is as good a time as any to break out. And my wife and I I think we had been married about 6 months at the time. And we went down to the courthouse the next day and got a DBA.
Cool.
And
he's on board too, huh? Business partner.
Yes. Yeah, very supportive. And I had, besides watching my dad, I had nothing. It's only up until 2 months ago when I found that there's even a gutter installers community of any kind.
Yeah. Well, dude, hats off to you. And for all you guys out there listening that are wallflowers, that are hiding in the trim boards, Seth just said 2 months ago he tripped over this Facebook group, and now this guy is a top contributor. He's not just spouting off at the mouth with silly jokes and nonsense. This guy is constantly giving great advice, amazing content, and by reading it, I could tell he has a breadth of knowledge and some years under his belt, and that's why he's on here with me now. So, Seth, what do we tell the guys that are being quiet? Speak up, speak out.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how I got to the point of finding this community. There was no community that I was aware of, and I've been community minded in everything else. That's just when it comes to any hobby or whatever, I jump on the forums right away and start learning everything. I played a lot of music as as a kid in jam bands, and
Nice.
it's all community based,
Sure.
And so what I did is I had started all the way from the beginning, making really close friendships with all my competitors. I mean, we're all sitting in Sennox every morning waiting for our orders.
Right. Everybody knows everybody, right?
Yeah. And so I just nurtured a lot of real friendships, and to the point, not to give away too many business secrets, to the point that I rent my machines to my installers pretty regularly,
Wow.
to my competitors rather.
I did see that on Facebook. You did post a rig, a trailer, I think it was, with
And I have 2 rigs that go in and out of my shop all the time.
That's a real unique business model, man.
It is, but it's not haphazard. Like, there's not enough time to talk about it in this setting, but it is not accidental, and it's part of why I am exactly where I am business wise today.
No, I trust that you have that figured out, but that's definitely outside of the box. Well, you never see that.
Yes, I've been stopped by managers at ABC and Sennox many times before. Like, we just saw your trailer on another truck, and I was like, yeah, I rented it to them.
Yeah,
like, but they're your competitor. Like, yeah,
and I got paid for that.
Exactly. Well, one of the most pivotal points in my gutter company was it happened at Sennox. We're standing outside waiting for our materials to come out, and the biggest company in my market at the time, the owner comes up to me. He's on the phone, and he hands me his phone and says, "Talk to this guy. I've already told him he needs you, not me."
Interesting.
And
what was the difference? Why did he need you versus him?
So this is one of my crowning jewel jobs. This was a historic recreation of some gutter on a 1850s hotel.
Okay, cool.
And it was Yankee box gutter with a big, crazy 18-inch cornice.
Sure.
And we had to design something that would work and not leak into the building. Turned out to be, it was like almost $40,000.
Awesome.
But I sold that job on my competitor's phone.
You literally closed the deal on the phone when you took that call?
Yes, on the competitor's phone.
Wow.
But that was because I had a community.
He couldn't do it though. I mean, and now I guess, is your relationship with him still strong?
Oh yeah, I just saw him last week. We're still good.
Well, it sounds like you're a level-headed guy, and you're able to manage these relationships and make it work that way.
And it's a give and take too. You never just take.
Tell me something, Sennox. How are you faring with them? What do you think of the product? How's their service? Tell me about them.
So over the years, I've used a little bit of Denver Southwest when they were still in business before Sennox got them. ABC, Sennox, Spectra, and K-Can and gutter suppliers.
Okay.
And out of everything that I've used, Sennox is probably consistently the second best material. Okay. I don't remember who the supplier was for gutter suppliers back in the early 2000s, but they were running all 032 at the time.
Sure. And
their miter machines were so crisp and tight. Ever since about 2015, Sennox miters are crap, but
I think everybody's miters are crap. I think they all.
I don't know what happened. They used to be
they don't make them anymore. Somebody else is making them overseas, I would say.
Well, they have that long, rounded bottom lip.
They're like bananas. They're all.
It's horrible. And if you're running chop saws on your rig, my goodness, it's just a pain to always either cut short or cut that bottom lip off.
Yep.
But besides the miters, and besides the prices that are absolutely horrible,
we're never happy with the prices, right?
Yeah, and I mean this is no smack talk to them, but their prices really suck. but their material is good.
And that's
it's
why
not
you
as
keep
good
coming
as it
back,
used to be. What?
That's why you keep coming back. I mean, that's your spot.
Yes. And like this particular branch that I'm at, I've been a customer there through like 14 different managers.
Wow.
And I know the store better than the managers do, but it's just one of
I will
those.
say sometimes it takes a manager to make the relationship, to make the deal.
Yes, and the current manager that my Sennox branch has is really good, which is nice because, like I said, I've been through a lot of turnover.
Shout out to Rob Vale at Sennox. What's up, buddy? Thinking about you, Rob.
Well, I've been looking at switching over to Spectra. Me and another competitor here, we double up our orders together.
Really?
And do bulk coil orders and downspout orders from Spectra.
Cool.
And
you got a discount for that?
Oh, we nearly stole the last order. Yeah, and I was so sick because I think together we ordered, I don't know, we probably ordered 25 coils in the last 4 weeks.
Wow.
And
how much volume are you doing?
Me, I'm doing the smaller amount of volume from that sale, but we're doing about $15,000 a week.
Okay.
Yeah, so
it's one crew.
1.5 right now. I've got 2 trucks in the shop going back, and every time they come out of the mechanic shop, they go back in the same day, and that's been that way since January.
Brutal.
So I have 5 full rigs ready to go, and enough people and staff to have about 2.5 going out.
All right, and I don't want to change subjects. We're going to stay on the same track, but state of affairs, current events, because it's a hot topic right now. What's going on down near you? Are things slowing up? Is everybody kind of crickets and quiet right now, or what's going on?
It's definitely not Florida here. Yeah, shout out to all those people looking for work.
Yeah, these guys in Florida are sucking wind.
Yeah, so our area is heavy oil and gas. Mm-hmm. So, our market fluctuates with that. But right now, we're okay. I've seen call volume much higher. Everybody's seen that meme the last few weeks, the dad holding the son up to the basketball goal, right. My business and then inflation. Inflated prices are definitely a major part of
100%
of what we're doing right now.
Now, I didn't study you yet fully, but are you doing all the right things here on the marketing side? Are you you branded well? You got a decent website
I worked really, really hard for a long time on branding. I was just talking to a marketing guy a week and a half ago. My cost per acquisition is below $20.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
If you're at 40 or below, even at 40, it's healthy. If you could, sell yourself on a job. I mean,
I contacted this guy to try and see, if he could help me push an extra $500K in a year. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, but it's going to be 10 to 20 times what you're paying right now. And
yeah.
Well, we still might end up doing that just to get more market share, but
yeah. And I don't need your unique secrets, but I mean, are you doing the thing? Are you doing Google ads and pay-per-click as well?
This is really funny, but I do almost no ads.
That's great.
I pushed back in the early 2000s. I pushed flyers really, really hard because that's what we had, and then I self-taught myself some HTML back in the day and had a nice functioning website. It's been upgraded here or there. It's still not the best website in the world, but it has the right information on it.
Good.
But like I said about the community with the competitors, I'm in local builders associations and clubs and communities. I'm well known personally in the area, and
Excellent.
I really work off that a lot, which makes me not a very sellable company, but a very cheap one to run.
Right. Sure. No, I mean, everybody's got their angle. I started with builders and roofers, and then there's an evolution. I mean, you're always, if you are pushing and evolving, you're always trying to find better and better dollars, per linear foot. So how do you do that? I mean, top dollar is direct to the consumer, right? If you could do what we call retail work, which is get the homeowner to call you directly, you got the lion's share of the profit. It's all yours.
So main kind of bread and butter business for me up until all of this changes around February of this year. But up until February of this year, I was running about 90% direct to homeowner. And I've been working on that for a long time, and I have a personal motto that not all money is the same color green.
That's true.
And so I was very selective of which customers I took. Now, I just acquired a much bigger company than I was in February.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about too. Let's get into some of the other things you're into.
Well, this is... I had this opportunity come across my desk. One of my competitors, we've been talking about this for some time, but long story short, he called me up like early February and just said, "Get money together, come buy me out. I'm done."
Wow. Gutter guy.
Yes, probably in my market, depending on how you chop my market up, he was either number 3, number 4, somewhere in size.
Oh, okay. I think we study our analytics nationally here. We have a national reach. Analytically, Texas has the most contractors, the most rain gutter contractors. It's unbelievable how many are packed into, especially the Dallas-Fort Worth zone.
Yeah, you would think with all of our square mileage that they'd be spread out, but they're not spread out. Yeah. I think in my local market, let's say you did a 50-mile radius for me, you're knocking on 100 companies.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then, I just posted a video yesterday. I shot it in the morning driving, and I had a crazy day, and I was away from Wi-Fi, so the video didn't post on Facebook till late in the day yesterday. But basically, I was speaking to diversification, and it sounds like you just are naturally doing that, right? I mean, as
far as other trades, well,
or anything in general, overall, like you're creating revenue streams in other areas to hedge your bet.
Well, that's I'm working on getting a full side of the company into rental equipment, just because it's nice passive.
Wow, cool
income, and I'm trying to spread that further out than local.
So it kind of plays into renting the rigs, right? I mean, it's all in the same space, the same headspace.
Yes, and it's to the same customers and everything. And I'm working on that.
Now, you a gearhead? Like, you play a game like that, you really need to be able to turn a wrench. And
I think probably I've flipped at least a dozen to 20 machines.
Wow.
And so back, I don't know if you remember when the Barracuda first came out, everybody sold off all their big wheel machines right away, because that Barracuda was $6,000 when it first came out. Yeah, right. So everyone just dumped all their big wheel machines, and I just went around all the area and I just bought them all.
You had them all sitting around on a...
Yeah, well, I would buy them, I'd tear them completely apart, I'd send them off to have everything sandblasted on the frame, repaint them, repolish all the chrome, put them back together, set them, sell them.
Neat.
Yeah. So I know. Yeah.
See, the problem with me is you can't find time in a day. I'm so buried in.
There's no way I could ever do that again.
Okay. So you don't have time for that now.
Yeah. I was my gutter company for 8 years was sub $300K.
That's by the way, that's not bad. Another market.
Yeah, and if you're one guy and a helper,
you can make a living.
That's a fortune.
Yeah.
And that's working, basically 3 days a week. If you got good jobs, my average ticket is between $2,000 and $3,000. So if you're doing 3 of those a day, 3 of those a week as a little owner operator with a helper, that's great, and you have a whole lot of extra time.
Sure.
I don't have that time anymore, and it's definitely not something I would suggest.
Yeah. All right, so you're dabbling in, so when you get into that space of tool rental, firearms. How did you get into firearm sales? And tell me all about it.
So, as a guy who was, sub 300K with just one helper, I decided maybe 6 years ago that I just wanted to collect some licensing. And I wanted to fill my own safe, it's not a legal reason to get an FFL, but it is a legal second reason to get an FFL. As long as your first reason is to have a business,
right?
They expect you to fill your own safe.
So what is that process? I can only imagine. 6 months? Do they really make it stretch?
So it was more or less a year for me, 6 months to a year. And there's a in-person interview with a field agent in your house.
Wild.
Yeah.
They're peeking under mattresses and stuff. They want to see how you're living.
Man, I have 6 kids. I run businesses. I've seen stress before. I've lived it. Having an ATF agent in your house,
I could only imagine, buddy.
That's skin crawling.
Yeah.
The reason I actually got out of it was partially because I have no time, and partially because I had just gotten inspected and written up a few months before.
Some nonsense or
clerical stuff. Like I got in trouble for a customer missing a period or something. That kind of, and I was getting berated and threatened by a woman who literally didn't know how to read.
Oh man, this is a customer.
No, this is an ATF agent
that can't read.
That could not read. And
wild.
This woman had, in my mind, because of her badge, just ridiculous amounts of power over me. And I was, nope, I'm done.
Yeah, things have gotten very skewed with that type of stuff. And that authority thing, right? Like that just blind power. I don't know. I couldn't be in a position where, you could get throttled and abused that way. And
yeah. And so my business is in my house. And so one of the things that you sign over to have an FFL in a home-based business is ATF access to your house at any time.
Yeah, that's wild. Did they ever show up? Did they make
they showed up once. The way that we had my company set up, my wife could tell them to pound sand if I wasn't home.
Right.
But if I was home, I couldn't turn them away.
Okay.
And that's just anyone out there who wants to do it, more power to you, but just realize that it's not fun. And
I would think
I've got some cool stuff, and I'm not going to lie, that I've got some cool stuff back here that I wouldn't have any other way.
Yeah.
I'd give it all back.
You say that, but you had your experience, and it's behind you. It's under the belt.
That's true. But I did give my license back. So
okay, right. So you could have kept it up. You could have just kept.
Yeah, I didn't get shut down. It was too much for me.
Good for you. So it's an evolution for you. So what are you thinking? I mean, is Rain Gutter still a long-term monetary win for you? Is that something you're going to always keep in the fold, and you're going to expound on that, or does that have an expiration date?
I have some ridiculous aspirations.
I want to hear these, man.
I plan on going national. I don't know how long it's going to take me.
You have the chops for it. I think you can do it.
I know how I want to do it, and I know what I want to build it on.
Okay.
Staffing is going to be.
What drives you on that? What's intriguing about that? Is it the thought that, it's just the math on, okay, I know what I make here now. If I had 40 of these locations, I know what I would be doing then. Is it the monetary draw, or is it?
It's not monetary.
Is it branding? Is it?
I've told people this for a long time, and lots of people don't believe me. The money's not a factor for me. I definitely need it, and I definitely want it, but that's not.
The government makes sure we absolutely need that money now, man.
Oh yeah, and I'm not downplaying the money, but so I look around at my market, and I'm coming up behind guys who, you could slide quarters into their strip miters. You can see half the crimp on every elbow because they're barely stuck into the downspout.
That's the old standard too, isn't it?
It is, but I see that stuff and I know better.
But the homeowner doesn't, right? The homeowner doesn't. I'm on a mission to teach them, and I do training. I do on-site training with my competitors for all different kinds of stuff. I think we had 3 of them in the last 2 weeks. And then this Sunday, we're actually doing a boot camp at my shop when I've got about 7 different companies coming out with their installers. How technical do you get?
Very, very technical.
Okay.
But I do that because there are a few companies that I want to put out of business.
Interesting.
But I want to put them out of business by raising the standards of the market higher than they can achieve for the price that they're trying to sell out.
Absolutely. And then they just get washed away with the tag.
Yeah, my thing is I hate spending my own money. And when I do spend my money, I choose companies and products that have the most value in them. And I want to see if I can nationalize that level of care into the product.
I think with the right drive and effort, certainly you can. I think there is a market there for that. Is this something you think you'll do by acquisition, or do you think you'll start up your own?
No, I think old school, acquisition. I've got 2 companies under my belt so far in the last 10 years. I should have this last one paid off in about 24 months, 26 months, maybe. I've already warned. What?
I'm sorry. These are gutter operations that you've.
Yes.
No?
Yes. And I've already warned the next company that they're on my radar next, and I'm trying to make them an offer.
Let me ask you something. As an outsider, when you kind of forecast, you look at things on paper. This will help the guys out there at home that are maybe contemplating the same kind of moves. When you look at it on paper and you see what they make, and then you make the merger, the acquisition goes through, you assume them. Does it equate on the bottom line, or does it not equate? And then you're, what's the 1 + 1 = 2, or how does the math go?
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this. The one that I just did is by far the largest thing I've ever bought in my life.
Okay.
So I'm green on. I'll accept being green on the entire acquisition thing. I've done it before, but on a much smaller scale.
Well, I guess my point is, did your inbound leads double right away? Did your bottom line revenues change immediately?
It was not 1 + 2 = 3, but it was 1 + 2 = 2 to 2.5.
Change, yeah. It's a push in the right direction.
Yes, and it's one of the hardest things is the merging of operations. We were.
Next question. Did you assume staff too, or did you?
Yes, I took over staff, and even the previous owner of the last one stayed on in the sales position.
Oh, cool.
But the first one, it was just machinery and name, and that one was 1 + 1 = 1.
Okay. And that's the gutter, is that the gutter guy name, or that you already had that?
No, I already had that.
Okay.
And then this last one was equipment and staff, and he was about 70% contractor builder.
Okay.
Now, the problem with that is that for all my years leading up to this, I had worked really hard on making sure that my accounts receivable was more or less received at all times. And this last company, the owner had been letting his AR get into the 40s and 60,000s.
Yeah.
On residential.
And you never get that money.
Yeah. I've had to work really, really hard on that. And I've lost a couple builders because I just,
so let's talk about that. Builders are a whole nother ball of wax, but just to kind of dabble on that topic for a second, because I have input on this too. I know my receivables at one point, I had a partner when I started. I launched my business with a partner in 2003. And, receivables, why receivables happen? It's not the residential retail work. It's the damn builders. It's the damn builders that just slow pay you or the roofers, and you can't get away from that 30 or 45 day plus. You just can't because they won't do it. And that is why you carry receivables. And so at one point, 150,000, I'm like, no. I bought my partner out after 9 years and immediately changed everything, the entire business. And I won't get into all the other details, but one thing I did change immediately was no more receivables. I want credit cards on file. I want them digitally vaulted. We want all the terms in our contract spelled out. Deposit now with contract, payment due upon completion. Now, if I give them a couple days window to make that payment, fine. But my receivables are like 5 to 7 days. It's nothing.
Exactly.
It's just flipping that switch, though. So how did you do it? What did you do to change that?
So I can't talk too heavily about this right now because this is very fresh. This is in progress. So
okay.
I don't want to act like I have the answers.
I appreciate your honesty, by the way.
Well, so far what I've done is just said, look, I can't work that way. I can either take a deposit before I schedule and take half down, and then, I'll take your 2-week pay, but only on the second half of the job.
Right.
Or you can have a check ready at the end. That's worked on a couple. Some of them, I just brought it up and they just weren't willing to do anything. They have their own in-house terms.
Yep.
They think they can dictate to their subs what their prices and payments and all that are. And I just don't have time for that. The most effective thing has just been, I don't gatekeep information at all. So the one that I'm dealing with right now is like, look, I have payroll every Friday, just like you do.
Right.
And I'm missing $15,000 right now. Like that's not acceptable.
Right.
And I'm not going to keep hanging gutter for you if every Friday morning I wake up 5 pounds lighter because I have,
It's just not worth it. You might. Yeah,
that's not
a bad. Yeah. No, I get it. Honestly, one of the mandates I made here was, and we still get a ton of checks, but verbally, the way we communicate and voice our operations and our protocol here to the consumer, to the homeowner, is, we need to digitally vault a credit card. We need a credit card on file. We attempt to get that first. And by the way, we also we put a 4% fee on top of any kind of credit card processing. Right. I got tired of paying, I was paying in excess of $80,000 a year in credit card processing fees. So that had to go too. That got chopped and hauled out. But when you push on the homeowner and say, you know what it is? It was definitely a switch flipped in my own head where when you're still green and you're still coming up, you don't want to ruffle feathers. You don't want to rattle the cage too much. You don't want to upset that homeowner, right? You're just happy to be there, getting the job, and you have pride too, right? And you're like, exactly 2 weeks. Yeah, but then something just changes, and usually it's what you just said. It's payroll. It's hard facts. It's hard financial requirements that need to get met as the business owner, and then you're like, you know what? Forget this. I'm done. I'm done with Mr. Nice Guy. Mr. Nice Guy goes out the window at some point.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't know about your experience, but when I switched, maybe 2006, 2008, somewhere around that time. No, it'd been 2010. 2010. I lost track of time there. 2014, 2016. I don't know when I switched to half down for all of my jobs, and I found that the customers got better
Oh, I'm 50% deposit or we don't start.
And the thing is like before that, I was dealing with, the day of, I changed my mind or changed the color. When I started doing that, the customer took it more seriously.
100%. When they know you in business, they respect you for it.
And that's it. Well, I was going to get to that. You mentioned being green and not wanting to upset homeowners. Totally been there. But it's actually not an accurate view. When you go with confidence and say, no, we have terms, this is how we do things, the customer actually takes that, they share in that confidence.
Correct. They want to do business with a respectable business person that has their act together. They want that, right?
Yes, and the wishy-washy doesn't.
Yeah, 100%. But I will tell you, you're not pushing, you're not serious about deposits. They walk on you. Then they get a week away from the job and they just haven't mailed that check yet. Or then 2 weeks turn around and it just haven't mailed that check yet. It's amazing human nature, right? When you start you start putting time between when the job was completed and when they want to stroke a check, people start thinking they don't really owe you that money anymore.
Yeah,
that money's no longer, they don't really owe you that anymore,
Yeah. The time it takes to get paid late one day is half the time it takes the second day. Like if you wait 2 days, you're going to wait 4 days. If you wait 6 days, you're going to wait 12 days. Like there's this curve it doesn't happen.
I have a great story, an anecdotal story. This goes back to when I bought out my partner, my former partner. So this was like 12 years ago. I bought him out. I cut him a check and, away we went, and now the business is all mine. And we were like 4 months away from paying off 3 vehicles that we had notes on that were all like coming up at the same time. So all of a sudden, after like 2 or 3 months, I'm no longer paying. I don't know. It changed me. It was like $3,000, let's say, a month. So all of a sudden, that's just clean money in my pocket. So that changed. And then, I'm going through the books and I'm looking in folders and files, and he did a lot of the bookkeeping. So maybe like a year after we closed on the sale of the business to me, I'm looking in a folder and I pull a check out from an old customer, and it was a perfectly pristine check in a folder. The customer signed it. It was like $2,500. It wasn't like chump change. It was a decent check, a nice check to find, right? You're like, okay, this is cool. But it never had been deposited. It wasn't deposited on online banking or anything. It was just my ex-partner put it in a folder for some reason, and it never came out of that folder. I discover it. And I remember this just like vividly. It was 9 at night or something. I'm home alone and I'm sitting there doing one of these, holding the check. And I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? I'm like, all right, am I going to call this guy up? That would be the right thing to do. Let me call this guy, give him a heads up and have a little, mano-a-mano chat. Let's just talk about this check. And hey, dude, I'm going to go deposit it today. And, I just want to give you a heads up. And then I went, you know what? Fuck this guy. You know what?
That's my money.
I'm going to tell you why fuck this guy. And this is to everybody at home. Why didn't he call me in the last year? How come you didn't call me and say, hey, Frank or Chris, I think you guys overlooked my check. You never deposited it. And you know what? If you lost it, not a problem. I'll issue you a new check. I'm going to send it tomorrow. I just want to.
But that never happened.
Yeah, the guy never called me, right? Yeah. So I told my office manager the next morning, I said, I'm depositing a check for $2,500. This guy, I don't know how this happened. This is just, a brain fart. I don't know what Chris did, but Chris put it in this folder. I'm bringing it to the bank. And then I said, I just want you I'm putting you on notice because the phone's going to blow up.
Yep.
She's like, okay. I literally spelled out exactly what was going to happen. The dude calls 48 hours later. It was literally like 2 days later. The money gets pulled. I deposit the check. The money gets pulled. I get the money. The money's in our bank account now. And he calls the office flipping. The guy's rip shit mad. And I'm like, what is he mad about? So my office manager's like, he needs to speak to you. I take the call and I'm like this with the phone because he's screaming. And I'm like, sir, you're acting like I did something wrong. Did I do something wrong?
Money from you.
Right. He goes, well, you should have told me, and now I overdraw my checking account, and I'm all screwed up, and I had 4 checks that just bounced, and I need that money back. You need to give me that money back. I was like, but that's my money. I mean, my bad for not depositing it. It was clearly just a human error, but my bad. But you owe me that money, dude. So like, why didn't you? And then I got back. I flipped it, and I said, you don't balance your checkbook? What do you mean? I said, every time you go to write a new check, it's been a year. How many checks did you write since you wrote that check to me? How many times did you carry that money and keep it there? How many times? And then at what point, dude, did you decide, fuck Frank, fuck Connecticut Gutter, that money's gone. That money's mine now. I don't need to carry that anymore. I said, that's bad business, and you should have called me. So don't put it on me. This dude did not stop. Well, I'm calling the bank. I said, call the bank, dude. That's my money. You owe it to me. Your gutters they're 12 months hanging in the wind. What are you talking about? Oh, he called my office I talked to him 3 or 4. I said, why are we still talking? You got an interest-free loan. I mean, how many ways do I have to cut this that you're wrong, I'm right? I'm sorry, and I'm glad I didn't call you because look how you're acting. You would have told me you didn't owe me the money. So it's crazy out there, and you need to put these stops in place, these protective measures in place, these line items inside your contracts that say deposit due upon completion so that you have recourse, and you need to digitally vault if you have the technology in the office. If you don't, I really recommend you get it. Not every customer is going to give you a credit card to digitally vault, but a lot of them will. And that's just my office, let me just map that out. You have the card digitally vaulted. You already have the deposit. You finish the job. My office manager calls, hey, we're done. How do you want to pay? Should I run the credit card on file? And then, people get cute and they don't answer the phone. They don't return the call. We give a 48-hour courtesy window, and then she just runs the card. And guess what? In those scenarios, and it's not often when they ghost and they try not to answer the call or return the call, but she'll wait the 48, 72 hours or something as a courtesy. Like, I left you a message. You have 3 days basically to call me back and tell me you need to pay me in another form or fashion. But when you don't, and I run the card, I'd say 95% of the time, or 99%, they don't call and fuss like this jerk. They don't call and say, oh, you ran the card. They know, because I set the tone. I told them the parameters of the deal on the front side. Yeah. That's it. It's simple stuff. It's, whether it's business, wives at home, relationships, children, it's all in communication. And if it's a one-way communication, like the business to the customer, and we're the ones being very vocal, they can't say we didn't tell them. If they want to play ostrich, fine, but have that card on hand, run it, and get your money. I mean, stand up for yourself, stand up for your business, get your money. We totally agree. You guys, Seth, I know, we just said it, and so many guys I know really killing themselves out there and breaking their ass. We deserve every dollar we scrape up and cut our hands up on sharp metal to get. And it's on us to set that from the beginning. 100%. Yeah, if you don't communicate and set that tone, they walk all over you. And you know what, too? That goes hand in hand with the small time guys. If you guys want to feel good about anything in this conversation, this has been a very fruitful conversation, but today, a nice little feel good. Everybody lately has been complaining about migrants and people buying machines, don't have insurance. We have competition through the roof, especially you in Texas. You're right on the border. Yes, competition's at an all-time peak, but guess what, guys? The same guys that are undercutting us and doing work for pennies, they're the same guys that don't know how to collect. They're the same guys that get beat the most by the homeowner. They're the guys that don't have legally binding terms and conditions on their contracts. They're not compliant with local laws on home improvement, engagement and contracts. So I don't know. I'm not looking for somebody to shit the bed and lose their shirt, but like the guys that are not doing things the right way are the guys that get screwed first. So that, guys.
They don't stick around either.
No, it's a flash in the pan for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, dude. So now what? You're doing national. We're going to talk offline. You're going to go national. We got a lot to talk about.
Well, that is the long-term plan, and I don't expect to see. I've got little over 2 years that I've committed to working 7 days a week. I think I've had 5 days off this year, and 2 of them were for Mother's Day weekend.
You're working 7 days a week?
I'm working 7 days a week, and I've committed 2 years to that for this acquisition because
wow, you're animal.
It was just, interest rates are really horrible right now. So when you go and ask for a large chunk of money, the difference between paying this loan off in 2 years and 10 years, you could buy another house with that. So
yeah, it's scary. It's so scary.
I'm willing to put. I was a small guy for a long, long time. I'm still a small guy, and I'm willing to do the work. And
what's step one? Step one is getting your head right, and it seems like you have that, right? You have this. You could see the forest between the trees now. Once you have that vision, those optics are there, everything just follows behind it, right? You could roll out and scale, and you'll have no problem.
And that's the thing. Right now, I've got 2 years to get to the next kind of turning point. The next hard goal on the list is when this loan money, stops disappearing every Friday. Then that'll free up a whole crap ton of capital.
Sure.
But I know what my next moves are.
Good.
As soon as that money's free.
Well, we're going to have a conversation later offline because I have some interesting things to throw your way. One last question. This is always good for a giggle, and I don't ask this enough. This should be kind of like my outro on podcasts. Hand cut miters or box miters?
If you're talking copper or galvalume, hand cut all day long. If you're talking aluminum, strip miter. I do not like to see a painted edge with a shiny metal strip where you cut it. And I do not like to see touch-up paint on the face of my gun.
Oh, the worst.
So strip miters done well on aluminum, hand tab on copper and galv. All
right, so then I lied. I do have one other question. What do you think is your best technical skill set? What are you best at? You mentioned copper. I do a ton of copper. I used to be a soldering nutcase.
Yeah.
Are you real nice with the soldering iron? What's your?
I'm okay with the soldering iron. I'm by far not the best. My strong point is custom profiles. I love doing antique recreations because you get these old houses where it was literally just a brakeman back in the 1800s making some sort of crazy radius quarter round or something.
So you have this brake skills for that?
Yeah.
Okay. What are you using for a brake to do that?
So I make samples by hand over here on a Tapco. Okay.
Sure.
And then I fostered a relationship with a roofing manufacturer that they have the extruders for purlin and all this kind of stuff. Big roofing company.
Yeah.
And I've fostered a relationship with them. So I take all my angles, all my measurements, I bring them to sample, give them all my measurements, and the lead brakeman over there, they've got 3 20-foot dual heads and a 28-foot, 1800s German brake that can do 14 gauge steel.
Sick.
At 28 foot. So I make samples, exactly what I want here, bring it over there.
What are you doing? Like 027, 032, and just...
I do, yeah, like when I do Yankee box recreations and stuff, I typically make that either out of copper or out of aluminum so I don't have to worry about rust.
Sweet. That's the way to do it. I mean, I'm all about old world craftsmanship. Let's face it, though, it's art. And usually artists are starving, right? They're poor. They can't make money. I mean,
I've eaten a lot of peanut butter in my life, man. And I consider myself...
I eat a lot of peanut butter.
Yeah. But it's...
You know what I mean, though, right? It's like you can make money, but give it to somebody else to do, farm it out, and get your ass back out and get the next job, right? It's like no one has time for it anymore.
Well, like we started off, I refuse to give my tape measure up. I like installing, and I hate selling. So this is, I like the art. It's just one of those things, you sell, a $30,000, $40,000 custom copper job. you're not making any more money than you are if you're just hanging K-style all day long. You go hang 4 K-style houses, there is no industry that I'm aware of that can make more money than just hanging K-style. And the custom, it's not in the custom work. I just have fun with it.
Right. Well, I love your style, dude. I mean, honestly, I part of me misses installing, but you know what it is, man? I have so much goddamn responsibility. I have 3 companies. I have a bunch of staff. I don't know.
I feel it.
Subcontractors. I mean, it's just I have to get out there and shake my ass, man. I have no choice.
When I took this company over, I went from having basically 1 employee to 5, and that's I have a household of 9.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got to feed a lot of mouths.
Yes, you do.
And I can't screw around and have fun all day long. So.
Yeah. I remember that was one of my biggest pain points was the transition from installing to selling and running the company. And early on, when I first made the transition, and then but I'm like in and out. And if I was on an install, my head would explode. I would get the frustration and the tension because I'm like, I have a million other things I need to be doing, but I'm stuck right now on this ladder, and I'm going to be here for another 8 hours. That means I'm going to be up all night doing paperwork. Like this is not sustainable, you know?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I see that in my future, and, I'm working 7 days a week right now, and all the paperwork gets done at night when I get home.
You're still a young pup. When you get the grades like me, it's
not going to last forever. I've just budgeted this 2 years in, and I'm good about keeping commitments. So I'm going to do this, but it's not gonna stay this way.
Right. Yeah, it's an evolution. Well, listen, I got to get my butt to the doctor, and I'm due for my checkup on this knee. So I'm gonna run. I totally appreciate it. It's more than a blast. I mean, you're a gentleman, and you have a lot to talk about, and very intriguing background. I thank you for sharing. I knew this was going to be what it is. And I have to talk to you offline because I have some very interesting things to discuss. So
I'm all ears as long as you don't call in like the next 4 hours, because I'm back to an install.
No, dude, I'm buried here. I got the doctor, and then I'm back to my desk. So
all right, man.
I'll bug you later.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Seth. Good to see you.